Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on UnityFM.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me, stand by me. Oh Lord, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Yeah. Just as long as you stand by me, stand by me.
Feel like I'm falling, yeah, falling down into the abyss. Black hole so deep, need a friend indeed to eat from the fruits of bliss. Too many problems, too many issues, becomes nonsense if I misuse the blessings that you gave me. Oh Allah, please come and save me.
In the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, all the mountains should crumble to the sea. I won't cry, no, shed a tear. Just as long as you stand by me, stand by me. So, oh Lord, stand by me, oh, stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me.
Feel like I'm on top of the world and the jigsaw's falling into place. And the patch is green and the path is clear. You're the one and only one that I praise. And I thank you, Lord, for the things I have as I make my stance in life. It's nice to know that your mighty glow lights up this beautiful night.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. And oh Lord, stand by me. Oh, stand by me.
Yeah, come on, stand by
Just
me.
as long as you stand by me. So oh Lord, stand.
Ya Rahim, Ya Mannan, Ya Kareem, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Hakeem, Ya Latif, Ya Mateen, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Mannan, Ya Kareem, Ya Ghaffar, Ya Hakeem, Ya Latif, Ya Mateen.
Stand by me, oh, stand by me. Just as long as you stand by me.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here at the heart of the city here in Birmingham. Live also on Facebook. Assalamu alaikum to everybody on Facebook this evening that is tuned in watching us. It's going to be a very good, exciting show this evening. I'm really excited about what we're doing and what we're going to be presenting indeed here live in the studio. I have a lovely guest here with me that I'm going to share her views in a minute with you. Indeed on Facebook. So you can see her also. Her name is Aamilah Begum. Assalamu alaikum, Aamilah.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you for having me on your show today.
You're welcome indeed. And you can see in the office our office manager as well. Assalamu alaikum. So we're all full house here live on Facebook this evening, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, we have quite a serious topic to talk about this evening,
yes.
and not a lot of people may have heard of it before. We're talking about endometriosis.
Endometriosis, that's
Yes.
correct. And you're right there, Kathleen. A lot of people don't know about it, and you know, I've been diagnosed with it myself. I have also, following my diagnosis, arranged an endometriosis awareness event, which we'll talk about a bit later on. But since my diagnosis and trying to speak to family and friends, colleagues, general people who I come across, and I say endometriosis, and they look at me like with a blank face, like, what have you just said? It's like a foreign word that I've used, or a foreign language. And I think for the ease of the listeners, if you wanted to look up endometriosis, don't get put off by thinking, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I don't know how to spell it. If you go into some of the mainstream search engines and just type in endo, E-N-D-O, it'll bring it up. And it is something that a lot of people haven't heard about, and it's something that I wish to raise awareness on.
Brilliant. So we're going to have a lovely discussion on that. We have some of our listeners that are live in on Facebook. If you're tuned into us on Facebook, do send us a message to let us know you're there. I'm not sure if our Approachable Parenting viewers, also Facebook viewers, are tuned in. We were trying to tag you in earlier on. We'll check in a bit with the studio just to make sure that they have tagged in that. But as you can see, we're here very much live, very much going out, all up in modern technology.
Quite interesting, isn't
it? Isn't it?
Yes.
Very interesting. It's my first time doing live Facebook like this in the studio. We've done some live Facebook from our phones previously.
Okay.
But we've never actually done it from the studio with the studio
Yeah,
monitors.
I've not as well, because I do the Friday Working Women's Chat Show at 7 o'clock, and I've not tried the live yet, so this is good experience
It's
for
a
me.
good experience. It's wonderful.
Yes.
Before we go talking about endometriosis, I wanted to remind our listeners about a couple of things that's happening that they may have forgotten about, or may have not put in their diary, or maybe just to refresh their memories again. Remember last week, listeners, we spoke a little bit about Nartex. It's a company that holds kind of clinics, sessions every Monday at our offices in Approachable Parenting from 9:30 to 12 noon about benefits, all the benefits that you're entitled to, housing grants applications, they will help you with that if you need an application to be done. If you're in debt or need money advice, they're there to help you. And we know this free service is really essential for people to be able to avail of and take full benefit of, because there's a lot of people out there suffering and that need that help out there. And we want people to get that message there to be able to have access to this free service. So if you can come into us or ring 0121 773 8643, and we can then give you a certain advice on that. So if this is good information for you, please let us know. I know our manager is just checking our Facebook live page at the moment. Is Approachable Parenting tagged into it? Yes, tagged in. Brilliant. So Approachable Parenting listeners, please let us know that you are tuned in as well, and that you are listening to us here live in the studio this evening. So just as a reminder again, that is Nartex giving free advice about benefits, about housing, about grant application, about debts. We all need some advice at some stage, and it may not be our listeners, but they may know
Everybody knows somebody
that needs help.
So yes, definitely.
So all they need to do is actually only ring our office, which is 0121 773 8643, or the studio here on 0121 772 8892, and we will set up appointments, private appointments for them, that they can speak to the lovely worker. She's really nice, and she's there available to give you one-to-one advice, support you in helping you in filling out your application forms and trying to get everything done so you be sorted. If you have your family or anybody that needs information, do come to her. And then the other thing I just wanted to remind our listeners is that we have, alhamdulillah, another pregnancy to treat course about to starting in December, the 11th of December, at our offices in Approachable Parenting. And subhanAllah, Allah provides funding for these things out of nowhere, and here we have some funding to deliver this, along with some health visitors. One of the health visitors won the Mary Seacole Award, and part of that award was putting on 2 of these parenting courses, one starting on the 11th of December for anybody that's pregnant or who have a child up to the age of 3. And I know some of you have been waiting for this for a long time, and actually we've had people on the waiting list, and they were so happy there is a course just ready there for them now. So again, ring the studio or ring Approachable Parenting, and we'll get your name onto that list so that you can have a place for that. And if you are needing a little bit of help in anything, in setting goals, or help if you're pregnant, or help in raising your child and you have some problems and you'd like one of our mentors to be there to be able to mentor you a little bit in helping you in this, or giving you advice, or coaching you how to solve that problem, that issue, or you just want to get out and walk a little bit and go for walks with others, or socialise with others, or do some crafts with others, we've got lots and lots of things happening in Approachable Parenting. So please do contact us and do ask us about all the things that's happening. There's something for everybody there. Again, the studio, which is 0121 772 8892, will be able to pass on our details to you, and you can ring and get more information about that. And if you're in Luton, we can still help you in Luton. So this is not just for our Birmingham listeners. This is for anybody that's tuned in Luton. Luton listeners tune in on 105.1. So it's great having them tuned in, and they listen to Inspire FM. And we this show goes out there live as well as being repeated. And they can also access this help. So we're trying to offer a lot of help there for people that would like to access that help. All you need to do, listeners, is ring the studio 0121 772 8892, or if you'd like to ring this evening and be on our Facebook page live and engage in this conversation we're going to have about endometriosis, please do so. Our lines are open at the moment. We've got 2 lines ready and willing to go, and we're going to talk about endometriosis. It's a mouthful. Try to get it out.
You say endo. Just
will I cut a shot to endo for this?
Yes,
for this?
That's fine.
I should know how to say it better than this, because I often had to refer to it. Indeed, in my medical, when I was a nurse and midwife, we often referred to endometriosis, and we needed to know about it, of course, for our exams, etc. But it is a long word to try and pronounce it properly.
It took me a while to grasp how to pronounce the word.
So tell us a little bit about this. Aamilah, and about why you're here and what you're trying to do this evening.
So basically, what I want to do is talk about a little bit about what endometriosis is, share a little bit of my journey, and then the work that I've started to do. Inshallah, would like to continue to do in raising the awareness of endometriosis and getting more women to talk about it, and particularly women from within the Muslim and Asian communities. So I'll start off by just giving a brief overview of what endometriosis is.
Please do.
So it's a common condition where the tissue that behaves like the lining of the womb is found in other parts of the body. It can appear in many different places, including the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, inside the tummy, and or in around the bladder and the bowel. It affects young girls, and it can start from the onset of when a young girl starts her menstrual cycle, and also women of childbearing age. It's less common in women who have been through the menopause, and it's a long-term condition that can have a significant impact on a woman's life, and there are treatments that can help. And some of the symptoms that you would get, the main symptoms with endometriosis, they can vary, and some women are badly affected with these symptoms, and other women, they won't come across any symptoms, but they've got the diseases present. And it'll be things like pain in the lower tummy or back, including pelvic pain, and it's usually worse when a woman is going through her menstrual cycle. The menstrual pain, that it will stop you from doing your normal activities. So some women will have their monthly menstrual, and they'll have some pain. They can take painkillers and they can get on doing...
Get on with life as
normal. But women who are affected by endometriosis, the pain is so debilitating that they can't function, they can't do their daily activities, and that will include things like, for young girls, missing school. For working women, not being able to get into work. For those women who aren't working and who are at home, probably spending most of the day in bed trying to recover from the pain. So that's how debilitating it is.
Really debilitating. You know, some of our listeners this evening now tuned in may actually have this condition and may want to join in the conversation, like what you are telling us a lot about it, may want to join in the conversation and either ask you questions about either themselves or somebody else, or talk about themselves and how they have overcome this. Again, listeners, please, we'd like you to ring if you'd like to join in this conversation. The number is 0121 772 8892. We're here in the studio looking forward to having that conversation with you.
Yeah, please, if you've got any questions, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, you don't need to really need to say who the question is relating to, but do call and take part in this live conversation as it's happening. There's also pain that a woman would experience at the time when she's being intimate, pain when urinating or releasing the bowels whilst during the menstrual cycle, and feeling sick. There's constipation and diarrhea, which you get a lot of, going to and fro between the two. In some cases, there'll be blood in the urine or in the stools during the menstrual cycle. This is a very common one where women will experience difficulty conceiving. So a lot of women who present and they're trying for children and it's not happening, this is something that you can request for it to be investigated. And also heavy bleeding beyond normal during the menstrual cycle, which can result in excessive sanitary usage and leaking through the clothes. And some women have reported while they're at work having to sit on a carrier bag because that's how heavy it can be. So that is in a nutshell what it is. And for some women it can have a big impact on their life and sometimes can lead to feelings of depression and various other things. But there is a lot of information out there on the NHS website and various other websites. And like I said, if you can't remember the word endometriosis, type in the word endo, E-N-D-O, and it will take you to information relating to endometriosis. So that's what it is now with my...
Wow. Yeah, it's a big thing. Actually, I'll spell the word out as well for people because they might want to type it in themselves. So it's ENDOMETRIOSIS, endometriosis. Yeah, it's very debilitating indeed and affects, as you say, a lot of people.
It affects 1 in 10 women.
Really, that high?
So that's 10% of women. If you're looking at in your individual families and in your own social circles, you're going to have at least 1 or 2 women, depending on how popular you are and how big your family connections are. And I've learned that statistic because now when I'm talking about it and I go into a room or I'm going into a gathering and I start talking about endometriosis, the amount of women that start putting their hand up and saying, I had it, or I have it, or I think I have it, and then that statistics becomes very clear when you start having the number of women that put their hands up and said, I have got it. Interestingly, last week I came across another statistic which isn't related to endometriosis, but it says in the UK 1 in 10 people are business owners. Okay. So businesses we can see with our eyes, and so we know when you think, oh gosh, that's quite a high number. But with endometriosis, we can't physically see the disease, but actually if you think about the comparison between the two, that's the statistic is the same as the number of business owners we have in the UK.
And women often don't talk about this because, it's not easy to talk about first and maybe a bit shameful and they may be a bit embarrassed about it, and there may be a different spectrum indeed in that they might have some of the symptoms but not everything you said, and they may be at the other side of the spectrum where they have all the symptoms, so they think, oh, nobody wants to hear about this and I'll just suffer in silence.
And I think as well is because when women's health, particularly menstrual related health, is kind of like can be considered sometimes in some communities a taboo subject, and we don't talk about it and we just have to get on with it, and you're just having another bad cycle and you're just having another bad cycle that's got heavy bleeding and pain, and just get on with life and you kind of like just push it to one side. And from my experience with myself, and from speaking to other women who are suffering from endometriosis, the disease progresses all the time, and the longer you leave it, the more complicated you're going to make it in terms of getting treatment, getting a diagnosis. So with myself,
So when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed in July of this year, but there's a story behind that.
Is there? All right.
I started having symptoms, I would say, around about 2008, where I started
10 years
identifying
ago.
the symptoms.
Wow.
On average, it takes a woman 7 to 9 years to get a diagnosis. That's how long it takes. Because we don't talk about it as much, not just in our own circles and in our own environments that we are in, but also within the medical profession. It's something that's kind of like pushed to the side as well. And this has been reported by many women who have had experience with endometriosis. So in 2008, and I remember going for my first ultrasound in September 2011, and that's when they picked up something that's called fibroids.
Yeah.
But then over the years, I would get really debilitating incidents of pain, and that would happen probably like once or twice a year, and I just ignored it. Severe lower back pain, severe pain throughout, excruciating pain throughout the body, and where I couldn't function as I normally do. And then the symptoms kept progressing, and then it was going like to 2 or 3 times a year. Then I was getting it every month. Then I was getting it every week, and then it came to a point where I was getting it every day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what a time period?
Over that period
That
of
10
around
years.
about 10 years. It's probably,
Right.
I probably did have symptoms before then, but I wasn't affected so much by the symptoms. I was
Yeah.
able to fight it off. And then in 2017, when I went to perform Umrah, that's when I had the worst bout of the experience with the bleeding and the pain, and it really significantly affected me. So when I came back, I was, right, that's it, I'm going to go to my GP. I got referred to a hospital by my GP. I did my own research, and I went to the GP and I said, I think I have endometriosis. Can we investigate this? GP then referred me to a hospital.
That was very clever of you to do your own research.
Yeah, I just put in my symptoms as pain in the right hip, the heavy bleeding, the pains, fatigue. The fatigue is just out of this world. You just literally cannot function with the fatigue that you that I get with this. I think this was in 2016, so I went to my GP initially and I said, can I get a referral? So I got referred to a hospital, had all my scans done, got told, you got fibroids, that's it, nothing else. There's nothing more we can do for you. So I sat there and I said to them, well, can you explain my symptoms? Because you haven't explained all my symptoms. So I decided that I was going to ask my GP to refer me to another hospital, which is what's called a BSGE registered. And I will go into detail. BSGE is the British... let's just bring this up.
Okay.
Sorry about this.
No problem. I'm just pointing over here to get this microphone right. Probably better in front of you, so you can actually talk into it clear. Is that better?
Okay, yeah, so that's fine. Thank you very much. So the BSG is the British Society for Gynecological I'm just trying to open this up. Sorry about this. It's like all these acronyms trying endoscopy. So a BSGE registered consultant would they would have had particular training with endometriosis. So you'll get BSGE registered centres, they're scattered around the UK, and then BSGE registered consultants who would work in there. So that means they're trained with endometriosis. So I went to a BSGE registered centre, gave my symptoms, wasn't taken seriously, and was told just to go away, and they put me on to take the pill that it should help the symptoms, and I was sent away. This was in September last year. And since then I experienced I would say about 9 months of non-stop bleeding. So that's how bad it had got by the time I got to this. Fast forward, after going back and forth with the hospital, I then got had a laparoscopic surgery. So what that does is they put it's like a keyhole surgery, and they put cameras inside of you and they check what's going on.
Yeah.
And if they do find endometriosis, then they're to remove the endometriosis. That's the arrangement that I had with my consultant. Had my surgery at the end of March this year. and they have to take images as well when they're in there. And I got told categorically, there's nothing wrong with you, we didn't find anything. But I wasn't having it because I know my body, I know my symptoms, and I knew that I wasn't right. I was a trainee solicitor, which I was doing part-time on a secondment. I had to end up giving that up.
Oh dear.
Because I just physically couldn't I wasn't able to function because of the fatigue, because of the pain. So I kept following my instincts, and I did my own research, found myself a consultant down in Surrey who was BSG registered, and bearing in mind this, the hospital that I had been to was also a BSG registered hospital, and they missed my diagnosis. So when I went down to Surrey to see this consultant, I took my images from the laparoscopic surgery, and he took one look at them and he said, that's endometriosis.
So like that.
Just like that. He didn't need to go inside of me. So the consultants that went inside of me didn't see it because they weren't BSG registered. That's what I put it down to.
The hospital was, but the consultant
wasn't.
Okay.
And they're trained to see and identify the endometriosis regardless of what stage it's at. So when he looked at the images, he said that. So I got that was my second opinion. Then I got a third opinion, and that was in July when I got the diagnosis based on the images from 2 different consultants who are BSG registered, who are endometriosis trained and specialists, and they confirmed from the images that I have endometriosis.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Parenting Hour. You're tuned in to Unity FM 93.5 here at the heart of the city, and you're tuned in also on Luton on 105.1. We are live here in the studio, live on Facebook. It's all go this evening, and everything is happening with technology indeed. But we haven't had yet anybody ring in, although we've had some comments on Facebook of people asking some questions about email addresses. So just before you're going to give an email address out, can we give the number out again and the studio email address out? So our studio is 0121 772 8892, and the email address is info@unityfm.net if you want to email in. But I think, Aamilah, you have also an email address or contact that you...
That's right, yes. I can be contacted because I do the Friday show at 7 o'clock, Working Women's Chat Show here at Unity FM.
Brilliant.
So my email address is Aamilah, that's AAMILAH, at unityfm.net. So if anybody who has got any questions relating to this, what we're talking about today, endometriosis, please feel free to drop me an email. I do often find that women who do want to talk about it, initially they're quite... they want to do it not so openly, so maybe they don't want to call
reserved,
in.
Yes, around this. And if they want to ring in and not give their name, we're not going to be asking people's names this evening.
No, definitely
because usually
not.
we do to have that conversation and get to know them, but we won't ask anybody their names this evening. We will just have a conversation, so you can ring in anonymously and have a conversation, ask Aamilah about her journey or her story, which we were right in the middle of your story.
That's right, yeah. So what I was just saying about... Then I got diagnosed, and the treatment that I've started is the chemically induced menopause, and that seems to be working, alhamdulillah. I'm on my month 2. You have to have one every 3 months. Some women have it for longer, some have it for 6 months, some have it for 12. There are side effects with that. But the other thing that I do want to say, a disclaimer that we need to make, is that if you are concerned or anything like that, please do seek professional medical help and assistance from your health professional. Of
course.
So that's really, really important that we get that message across to you. I am by no standard a medical professional, so I'm just basing it on my own experience with myself and other women.
But you know that helps so much, because sometimes women are suffering at home. They may not have all the symptoms, they may have some of the symptoms. And they might think, what's this? This is, this happens to everybody. This happens to every woman, at some stage, and not actually thinking it is a medical condition.
Yeah, and then I suppose I did the same. I suppose there's a lot of other women who I've spoken to who do the same, and we have a tendency as women to neglect our own health, to neglect ourselves until, don't wait till it's too late. If you have, any doubts, I would say go and speak to your GP and let that be the first step towards getting some sort of a diagnosis and getting investigation. This disease has changed my whole life, and one of the things that I want to talk about, I have actually arranged an endometriosis awareness event which is taking place this Saturday. I've got leading consultants coming to this event. I have 3 consultants, endometriosis specialists, that will be coming to this event, and I've got Professor Kamran Nazat, who is coming from the USA. He's actually already arrived here in the UK, and he is
especially for it, or was
for this show, for the event on Saturday. He'll also be on my show on Friday at 7 o'clock. I'm talking more about endometriosis. He's the pioneer and father of modern day minimally invasive and robotic surgery, world-renowned endometriosis expert and founder of the worldwide Endo March. So he's going to be one of the speakers at the event. I've then got 2 UK specialists. I've got Mr. Shaheen Kazali, who's the co-founder and co-director of CEMIG, which is an endometriosis unit at the Ashford and St. Peter's Hospital down in Surrey. And he's also the honorary secretary for the BSGE, which we mentioned earlier. And he will be talking about what the BSG does and why it's important to have a BSG registered consultant when you're going to go and see somebody if you suspect yourself as having endometriosis. And then we've also got Mr. Chris Mann, who's the founder and director of the Endometriosis Clinic, and he is a consultant gynecological oncologist and laparoscopic surgeon here in Birmingham. So that's who we have, and I am actually giving away 2 tickets.
We should talk about that.
So there is going to be a competition, and so if you want to take part in the competition, then here it is. If you were paying attention earlier, if not, then you can go and look this up. But on average, how long does it take? That's the question. On average, how long does it take for a woman to get a diagnosis? And I know the answer. So anybody who wants to take part in the competition, you can ring the studio on 0121 772 8892, and answers will be taken up until tomorrow, Wednesday. What's the date tomorrow? The 14th of November till 5 p.m. and then after that we'll pick a winner and the studio will take the details from you. But that's a competition that people can enter today if they want to come and join.
Wonderful. So if you want to ring in now and see that you've been listening to us attentively, of course, if it is safe to do so, because a lot of listeners are listening to this show on their way home from work. It's a drive time home, so it may not be safe. If they're driving, it is not safe to pick up the phone or to dial numbers like this. You're driving this evening, so be careful, listeners. Be careful in looking at the new speed limits also. There's a lot of new 20-mile-an-hour roads out there that started today. Yes. Be safe. So we don't want you to have an accident. Please be safe and be aware of all your surroundings. So this is open. The studio continues on until the 7 this evening or until tomorrow. Yeah, so the competition will be on until tomorrow 5 o'clock, so there's no rush to get it in now. And maybe they could email in the answer. Yes, you can email the answer as well to info@unityfm.net, and you can call the studio on 0121 772 8892, and the question is, on average, how long does it take for a woman to get a diagnosis with endometriosis? The other thing that I want to take on, I'm actually on the waiting list for a hysterectomy. So the chemically induced menopause, it's like a trial run of what your body would be like if you had a hysterectomy. Now, often women used to think that hysterectomy was a cure for endometriosis, but it actually isn't, but it does help with managing the pain on a longer term, forever kind of basis. So one of our guests who will be at the event will be talking about hysterectomy. Is it a cure for endometriosis? Is it a myth or is it a fact? I'm going into more detail on that. So I kind of like I said to you earlier, Kathleen, my whole life changed from being a trainee solicitor to having to give that up. I was only like about a year and a half away from qualifying. And so I want to talk about a little bit more now about the physiological symptoms and effects of endometriosis. You can kind of like find that when you Google it and you go into various different websites, and they'll give you a very detailed description of what endometriosis is, similar to the one that I shared earlier on in the show. But what you won't get is the
psychological effect it has on a person, the emotional effect it has on a person. When I say person, on a woman, it affects your relationships with your family, those women who have got partners, with their partners, with their children, with colleagues at work, because it's such a misunderstood disease, because it is invisible. You know, the debilitating, pain is felt and not seen, and when a woman is constantly in pain, it starts to eventually affect them.
Of course.
And
her own well-being must diminish because of that. Her physical and mental, emotional well-being. True, that struggle.
Yeah,
really.
and I say this and I don't hold back, because I believe that if I hold back, and if I have the confidence and strength to talk about it, then I should. And if I hold back, then I could be a step away from making a difference to another woman. But by talking about it, I'm a step closer to helping another woman and making a difference to another woman. And I've had to get counselling to be able to cope myself mentally and psychologically with the changes that my life is going through. Yes, my body is going through a lot of adjustments and changes, but my whole life. And so I've had to get counselling. And then what I decided to do was to channel my energy into doing something positive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has thrown this disease at me. It's my test, but I want to do something in return, and that's why I've become an ambassador for the charity Women with Endometriosis, and it's in association with them that I'm doing this event on Saturday.
To raise awareness.
And
where is the event? I don't think we mentioned the event.
The event is taking place here in Birmingham, and again, if anybody wants more information about the event, they can contact the studio, and the studio will gladly, quite happily share the details of the event.
It's Birmingham City Centre.
It's Birmingham in Perry Bar.
In Perry Bar area, so people would know kind of the different area. Great.
And I've got somebody coming from France
as well, mashallah.
Yeah, so she's flying in from France with her husband, and I've got ladies coming from Leeds, Manchester. I've got a mum who called me from Manchester not a couple of weeks ago. Her 16-year-old daughter is suffering. So often when I'm talking about endometriosis, we need to also focus that there's young girls as young as 8, at the age of 8, who are suffering. I've got a 16-year-old who's coming from Manchester with her mum and auntie, and she had symptoms from the age of 11.
Really?
And she's also on chemically induced menopause to manage her pain. I imagine a 16-year-old having to deal with the symptoms of menopause because the disease has got so severe for her. I know women who, I'm yet to find out if this is the case with me, but it's gone to their bowels, it's gone to their bladder, some women it's gone to their kidneys, and it can be quite complicated and quite serious if the symptoms are left unchecked, because you're allowing it then to progress and to continue to grow. So coming back to what I was saying about my, I've become an ambassador with Women with Endometriosis, and I want to raise awareness about this disease. I want to talk about it in safe settings, safe places, and one of the things that I would like to do, inshallah, going forward, is having support groups around Birmingham that will be open to all women. But like I said, I want to particularly focus on Muslim women and Asian women. I have supported a few women who are able to speak English, who have suspected that they have the disease, and I've gone to GP appointments with them to speak on their behalf to their GP and kind of like try and push them. And one of the ladies that I went with, she did end up getting a referral to the hospital because her GP had been sitting on it for 2 years, just sending her away, take painkillers, try this, and not actually taking the steps to investigate it. And I think with these awareness sessions that we would do, it's about equipping women and their families and their friends and their partners with the right information that is needed, that allows them to then go and make informed choices and decisions and have informed conversations with medical practitioners about how they want to move forward in terms of whether it's investigating it or whether it's going through treatment options. And that's what I want to do through the awareness work.
And I think it's wonderful. We will organise one in Approachable Parenting as well, so that you can talk about this, because if we don't know, how can we advise others, or how can we help others? How can even parents help their children? So they might never have heard of this before, and their child or a niece or may be having this, a relative, friend, neighbour, and they need to know about this to be able to pass on the advice and guidance to go to people like yourself, and as well the professionals, then the doctors.
The professionals are, you've got the medical professionals, but then we've also got educational practitioners as well, like in school when young girls are suspected of having endometriosis
and maybe missing a lot of days,
missing a lot of school. I have an amazing young girl who's going to be speaking at my event. She's 16 years old. She's suspected endometriosis, but she's going to talk about how the lack of support from the school was difficult for her. And if you've got girls who are regularly missing school, we don't just say, you're regularly missing school. We've got to look into this and say, well, okay, why is it that it's so debilitating that you can't come into school? We've got employers, many people who are listening in today, maybe a point of contact as a line manager. And if you've got female employees that are regularly missing work, on a monthly basis, is looking at that and trying to understand, okay, what's going on here, and exploring the possibilities of endometriosis. And they may even be surprised once they speak to them that they recognise that it's endometriosis.
We've got a call that's come in, indeed, on line 2. Let's just put on our headphones. If you can see us putting on our headphones. We're not going to ask the caller their name. Assalamu alaikum, caller. Can you hear us?
Wa alaikum assalam, sister. You okay there?
Alhamdulillah, we're good, alhamdulillah. I'm just waiting for sister to put on her headphones. Yes, she can hear indeed. Are you ringing in this evening to share some information or to get involved in the conversation that we're talking about endometriosis?
I had a recent experience. So I've been married for a year, from obviously me and my wife, mashallah, alhamdulillah. And obviously we were having issues with trying to conceive, but we couldn't understand. I went to have checks and everything. Alhamdulillah, everything was fine. But just 3 weeks ago, she was getting a lot of pain, like stabbing pain on the right-hand side. And I really thought it was appendix. So we went into A&E, waited 3.5 hours. They thought it was appendix. Then along came this consultant, and he actually said she needs to have 2 types of ultrasound. And then we actually found out there was a massive cyst, about 11 centimeters, they said. Then when we went to see the gynecologist, basically he said it was UnityFM, and she needs 3 keyhole surgeries. So it is a very important issue, like you're bringing this forward, because I would never have ever thought of this, but mashallah, I was just turning the radio on the way back from work, and it was just there. Just thought I'll share my story as well. So if there are couples having problems as well.
Well, thank you, brother. It's so good having a husband ringing in like this and sharing his experience, because I'm sure there's a lot of other men that's in the situation that you're in, but may not come forward. So you're very courageous to come on the radio and talk about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for doing that. Just to reiterate what you've said, Sister Kathleen, is that for a brother a man to call in a husband of a woman who is suspected of having endometriosis, it's just amazing that you've taken the courage and you're subhanallah, thank you.
What you've been through, and it's not hard, obviously, coming from our type of culture background, to talk about these things.
It is, yeah.
And you've actually gave me the courage to put this forward, and to even let the brothers know out there as well. Obviously it's difficult. That I couldn't understand when my wife was in pain and stuff. And even me, I used to just say, stop having me on, you're just playing me around. But obviously when it came down to it, and when you really see the severity of the matter, it is something very, very serious. But we can't, especially us guys, we can't seem to understand that. So be very supportive of your other half.
Brilliant.
There is an event coming up, an awareness event.
That's right. Endometriosis awareness event on Saturday. If you call the studio,
or if you hold on after this call,
or you can even enter the competition and come. If you're one of the winners, you can come along and bring maybe your wife with you and learn more about this. And you'll have access to 3 specialist consultants If you,
Inshallah.
there will be a Q&A session as well during the event. So yes. So the question for the competition is, on average, how many years does it take for a woman to get diagnosed?
6 to 7 years.
You need to call into the studio and leave your answer
Well,
there.
I think he's correct. Okay, we're not giving out correct answers this evening, but I would highly advise you just to once we continue this call, just to either ring back the studio again, because I think they're maybe busy with other calls. If you can ring back again and say you've been live on air and that you'd like to leave your answer with them, I'd highly advise that.
And I just want to say once again to you, brother, thank you very much for calling in. You have actually, in taking the step to call the studio, take part in this conversation as the partner of a woman who is suspected of having endometriosis. You've done a great thing in terms of sending out a message to other couples.
And I love to see the support, that caring support that you have shown by coming on air like this. And I'm sure you're the same at home in understanding what she's going through, that empathy. It's often on Parenting Hour we're talking about this, talking about how can, couples empathise with each other and understand each other, because some of the symptoms of conditions we don't see. It's not like a broken hand that you can see it and it's painful and it's all bruised and swollen like this. It is something different, and couples need to be able to empathise with each other to come together and form that close relationship, inshallah. So mashallah, that's really good of you, brother, to see this, because inshallah may Allah bless your marriage and bring you closer together, inshallah.
Ameen.
And may Allah bless all of you as well. Thanks very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Brother. Jazakallah khair.
That was really nice to see, because I'm part of various Facebook support groups, and the amount of stories that I read every day of women having issues with their partners because the partners are not understanding the disease. There have been divorces, relationship breakdowns, and it just goes on. And you explained it really well, because when you've got a broken arm, you can see it, or a broken leg. And to think that a woman is constantly in pain. Now, I've never had children, but having spoken to other women who have endometriosis, who have, mashallah, been able to have children, they describe those pains as contraction pains. And so those women out there who have had children, and you know, to think that a woman is experiencing this pain 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day. That's how it can be for some women. Some women, they'll have it for a few days and then it goes. And yet we're expected to carry on doing our normal daily things and function as normal. And for some of us, we do our best to do it, because we don't want to be defeated by the disease. We don't want, like someone like myself who's a go-getter, who's always working on different various projects. I don't want to stop. I choose not to stop. I can if I want to, but I choose not to, because then it means the disease has defeated me, and I'm not one that's going to accept defeat from a disease that I can actually help others in making a difference.
Indeed, it's true. And I mean, it's so important. And you were saying about young people there. Do you think that this should be taught more in schools? Because there's these people, young children are going through it, young girls are going through this, and then maybe if it was taught more about in the curriculum, at least they might have more of an inclination that there is such a disease.
I think 100% yes, it should be brought in as a curriculum. Part of the curriculum
in PSHE.
That's right, and that's a piece of work that I think a charity like Women with Endometriosis is trying to work on. But one of the things that Women with Endometriosis is we are going to do, and it is something that's on the action plan, is to, as an external provider, to go in and provide training in schools to young girls and talking about this, so they can identify the symptoms and then know what to do in terms of going forward and requesting an investigation. I think as a young girl, when I was growing up, I didn't have access to the internet. We didn't have that back then, and so you couldn't feel something and then go and Google search it and then try and kind of get an idea as to what's going on. But young girls today do have access to that, and what I do say to the parents, both the mothers and the fathers, is that you need to understand, as the elders as well, what this disease could potentially be. Like if your young girls and your young daughters are coming to you and saying, I'm having bad pains, or I don't think I can go to school today, looking into it yourself as well, so you can then also be that support and provide that support to your daughter, to your niece, or whoever it may be.
Brilliant. Can we give out some more details about your event, the awareness event that's coming up, and email address and phone number again, because we're coming towards the end of the show again.
It goes
Time
so
goes
quickly,
very quickly indeed. Yes.
It doesn't matter which side I'm sitting on.
Yep.
The time goes quickly on both sides.
I do want to
okay, so if you want to take part in the competition, or you have any questions and you couldn't get it through today because you were driving, you can call the studio on 0121 7728892, and they can give you details, whatever you may want. You can contact me here at the studio on Aamilah, AAMILAH, at UnityFM.net. The event is taking place this Saturday in Birmingham, in Perry Bar, and we are giving away 2 free tickets. And the question is, how many years on average does it take to get a diagnosis for endometriosis? And if you call the studio, the competition will close tomorrow at 5 p.m. That's Wednesday the 14th of November, and I'll have Professor Cameron, as that was one of the guest speakers from the USA. He is already here in the UK, and he'll be on the show on Friday at 7 o'clock for the Working Women's Chat Show this week.
So that's another opportunity for people to ring in on Friday at 7 p.m.
Yeah, and if you have any questions that you would like to put to him, get them through to me now.
Yep.
If you start sending me the questions, and then I can start compiling them in readiness for the show on Friday, inshallah.
Brilliant, mashallah. And before we end, I just also want to remind our listeners of a few things I mentioned at the beginning of the show. So I'm just going to hold up this. You can see it. It's Nartex. It's they're giving housing advice. So I can see that there. So they come to Approachable Parenting if you want advice about benefits, about grant applications, about debt or money. If you know anybody that needs this, please do pass on this message to them. It's free advice there. Lots of free things happening. Indeed, with all of us here that are active and trying to help parents and individuals have better lives. And this is another free course for pregnancy to 3. If you are pregnant or know somebody is pregnant and would like to attend this course, it's happening very soon. It starts in a couple of weeks' time at Approachable Parenting. You're welcome to ring in the studio again, and they'll pass on advice about that. Or if you have any issues that you would like to receive some support and help from Approachable Parenting, or talk about all our events that's happening, please do get in contact with us. The time is going very quickly. You can see it here in the studio. 22 seconds left. We're nearly towards the end of the show. I can't believe the time has gone so quickly. I'm going to say goodbye to you for now and put it back right over here to Aamilah to end the show today, end the live session we're having on Facebook. Hopefully you have a good week, inshallah. Do tune in to us again next week, inshallah. Have a safe week and take care of yourself.